Hey guys, how's it going? Today I want to walk you through our garden. It's actually a beautiful morning out here, starting to sprinkle a bit. I'm going to attempt to show you the whole garden depending on what the weather does and if it gets really long, because there's a lot to see. We haven't done a tour yet this spring, so I'm really sorry about that. We'll try to be a little bit more diligent as we go through the season, but I know a lot of you guys have been dealing with really cold, really long springs. Like we still have a couple of nights in the high 30s, I think, on the 10-day forecast. Ton of moisture this year, just amazing. Last night we got a bunch of rain. Plants are loving it, and I'm loving it, to be honest with you. It's slowing everything down and allowing us to really enjoy the time out here, and there's just a lot to enjoy this year. I mean, we just put up a video this morning of the brand new trees going in. It's just phenomenal. So anyway, I'm super excited to show you how things are going. I'm standing in the driveway right here. We wanted to start here because everything is just looking so green and lush over here. We call this the West Side Garden. We've got a Sprinter boxwood hedge here with red point maples, which are doing just so well. Our maples last year started to struggle a bit with chlorosis, which is an iron deficiency problem due to our high pH soil. Erin's been really diligent about treating them with chelated iron. We did do a video about that, and totally worth it. They're really coming out of that kind of funk, and they're looking really good. I kind of want to enter over here. We recently put together these pots. I had to tent them one night, and even with the tenting, the little sweet potato vine here got nipped a little bit. See that? It'll be totally fine. It'll come out of it. But yeah, we had harvest guard material over a lot of things in this garden, except for the impatiens that we planted up front, and those got nailed. I'll show them to you here in a minute. But I'm really happy with how this whole corner is looking. It's looking like full. You'll notice a bunch of grassy-like plants in here. Those are daffodils that have been deadheaded. So we just wait until the leaves start to yellow and kind of die back, and then that texture will leave. Once we cut all those back, it's perfect timing though, because we've got a lot of perennials in here. I mean, right here we have White Wands Veronica. There's lamb's ear. This is a penstemon. Isn't that gorgeous? The color of the leaves. This is Midnight Masquerade. Beautiful lavender, kind of creamy white flowers. Instant Karma elderberry, just like rocking back there, doing amazing. And it's got bloom buds all over it. A whole bunch of other things. Weeping Alaskan cedar. I don't know if I should go plant by plant or not, because if I do that, we'll be here all day. So maybe we'll just kind of do more of a quicker walk through here. But there's just a bunch of beautiful things. You can see the salvia we planted last summer is starting to bloom. That's so exciting. And I was standing out here last night looking at this space. So this is a Royal Frost birch right here, but I got a hole right here that I can put something cool in. Can't decide what yet, but this is a white yarrow right here. And then we've got some back and black sedum, limelight hydrangea standard, so we need to put something really nice right in here. Be exciting. Another Instant Karma right here. We let these on this end grow however they really want to grow. So you can see the fullness and the size of these. The other one down on the other end, I'll show you, we do cut back a bit to keep the size in check. We've done a tiny bit of planting in here. I mean, these are the roses that we moved from behind. No, yeah, these ones were behind the Hartley, and they're doing fantastic. I'm so happy about that. And then this one is kind of funny. So this is a Sugar Shack. What I can't remember the name. Sugar Shack is a variety. Anyway, I thought this shrub was dead. And 2 times this spring I've come along and like grabbed it at the base and tried to yank it out. And it was so rooted, I thought, well, I have to bring a shovel out to get this one out. And then maybe a couple weeks later, I came by and did the same thing, because I thought, well, it's been in there for a couple of extra weeks. Maybe it's loosened up a bit. I tried to yank it out. I mean, hard. I tried to yank it hard. And I don't know if that like gave it a little bit of an attitude adjustment, but it is budding up everywhere. Like it's starting to leaf out, and yeah, I don't have a ton of experience with these shrubs, so maybe they're just one of those that leaves out really super duper late, but that's exciting. I do have a nice crop of mushrooms. I'm not used to that. Around here, all the moisture, everything that's usually laying dormant is coming alive. We have Surefire rose begonias here underneath each one of the red point maples. That's going to be a gorgeous show. And you'll also notice as we move through, I have not trimmed any boxwoods yet, which it's a little bit late-ish for that. Kind of glad I didn't, because we had a 31-degree night last week. Had I done it before, like anytime really around that date, they probably would have suffered a little bit of tip damage. My plan is tomorrow's supposed to be 84. The next day is 80, and then we're gonna cool back down again. And I'm hoping to hit it right at the end of that little bit of heat so that they have maybe a week to get used to being trimmed, and hopefully they don't burn. That's my plan. Also, before we get too far, this is the new planting. Now, I did order from Gardener Supply some more of those what are they called? I looked at the website because I had to see what size. They're 18-inch round circles. I showed it in the video where we planted these Stand By Me Lavender Clematis. I had one that I put on one of the ones out in the south garden. Anyway, I ordered more so that, see how they're kind of flopping? That's what they'll do if you don't provide structure for them. Now, once they grow and fill in, they'll kind of lean on each other as support, but I want to get some circle, supports around these so we can really enjoy them and have them not like flopping over the beautiful ornamental oregano right here, Drops of Jupiter. Enjoying this plant so much. I actually have 2 more, and I'm going to take them out to my parents' garden because I think they would really enjoy this plant a lot. We have not planted up the urns yet. That is on the project list for this week. In fact, we have a lot going on this week. A lot of planting to do at the college. We haven't even started that project yet, and a lot to do here. I was planning on planting our dahlias today, but I don't know if that's going to happen with the weather being the way it is. There's the Glow Girl Spirea that we planted 2 years ago. Isn't it doing amazing? It's just full. Erin, you should get close on this. Look at all these buds. Holy moly. It is just loaded. Loaded. This is going to be gorgeous. You can tell that I'm really loving that chartreusey color plant in this bed, probably because these North Pole arbs provide that really deep green. There's a few of them with arms. We need to kind of come in and shear them up a little bit. Erin's pretty good about doing all of that. And the moisture we've been getting kind of, weighs down some of these branches. So we'll get that taken care of here. But this has been such a beautiful, really, I don't know, if this whole hedge experience has been a good one. I mean, they have grown so beautifully right here. It's kind of been Erin's pet project, really, to make sure they're fertilized, watered properly, and I think that's the reason why they look as good as they do. All right, there's Cheddar right there. Hey, bud. He and Russell were just fighting. In fact, they kicked a bunch of mulch out of the flower beds onto the walkway down there. Right down here, we have a whole bunch of perennials that I moved from behind the Hartley. So we've got the Lady's Mantle here, irises, or irises, is that right? Iris is probably the plural of iris, right? I don't know. Delphiniums, these are the Royal Jubilee David Austin roses right back in here. So all of these plants were moved. These were moved. Here's a weed. Here it is. We've got a little baby Kim lilac in here. That's a coral charm peony that I moved. And then this is the instant karma that has been trimmed. So it definitely has more of a round appearance to it. Those have more of a graceful kind of natural shape. But I really like the bright variegation on these. And this one is just loaded with blooms, which makes me happy because usually when you trim these back so hard, you don't get as many blooms because they bloom, I believe, on, I thought they bloomed on old wood, but I think this is new, isn't it? Interesting. I learned something every time I come out in the garden. We've got some David Austins here. These are the Ambridge roses. They're probably one of my favorites out here in the garden. They just load up with blooms. They're just the softest, delicate pink. Love them. And then right here we have our Climbing Colette rose doing beautifully here. It hasn't been warm enough for roses to start blooming yet, but the growth on them looks really nice and healthy. And then here is our raised bed vegetable garden, filling in really nicely. We did a video when I planted these in here. We've got onions in this bed. We did go ahead and replace all the boxwoods in the terracotta pots again with Winter Gem boxwoods because these beds in here fill up with so many fluffy things. I was gonna do something different, but I think I like the structure of having a sheared up evergreen. So you can tell I haven't sheared these up yet. And I will only do so lightly on these since they're brand new, but I really like having that round kind of weighty structure in here to kind of be a rest for the eye. Otherwise we'd have like this right here just reseeded itself, but it's got that fluffy texture. This is Phacelia. This is Bee's Friend. It's a beautiful filler flower for flower arrangements and the bees love it. So I'm just letting it grow. In this bed we have, let's see, snow peas right here growing on these little trellises. A few tulips left over from a couple years ago. And then I had a few onions left over that we popped in the end. Garlic in this bed, beautiful lettuce and spinach. This is a variety called Wildfire. Isn't that beautiful? And then we've got, this is Starfighter, right? Yeah, Starfighter. And then the spinach there. This is a green cabbage, red cabbage. This bed, I don't know which one of these two is the culprit, probably both. See how this is all roughed up? One of those cats was in there laying right here. I can't remember which one. Anyway, I found him in here and it was completely all, yeah, I had to smooth it out. So we've got a little hole in our iceberg lettuce patch here. On this side, we've got, oh, I skipped this bed. Hold on, we got to backtrack. Broccoli here, looking absolutely beautiful. Do we have any, see if there's any like starting to form. Not yet. And then we've got calendula right here. So this is the zeolites variety. I had planted in here by seed last year. We pulled it all out. I didn't realize it had dropped seed everywhere in here. So this is self-seeded. Needs to be thinned. Also, I have carrots planted in here because I didn't realize calendula would come back in this area, and it has with a vengeance. And I'm just going to let it go because I've got one of those elevated raised beds from Gardener's Supply that I just harvested carrots out of 2 days ago. I think I'm going to plant all my carrots in that raised bed somewhere out here in the sun, because when you plant the carrots in that raised bed mix, I used, or did I put some of potting soil? Either way, it's really fluffy and carrots form up beautifully in that, like even better than they do in our raised beds here. So that's where I'm going to grow my carrots. So I'm just letting the calendula kind of take over. In this bed here, we have kohlrabi and cauliflower. We've also got some chard. This is the baby chard. Took forever for it to come up, and it's coming up kind of weird in the front. And then this bed, I don't know what happened. These are baby turnips. Oh, cute. Look. I didn't even realize. The Mikado, baby turnip, and I only have a few. Oh, that is so exciting. I didn't even realize they were kind of ready. Okay, Erin, you got to remind me. I'm going to come out and pick a few of these today. But I don't know why they didn't come up in the rest of the row. I've got a carrot, like just randomly in here. This is from last time. Ew, that's gross. Chickens can have that one. In this bed, we have potatoes, which are coming up. Every single one of them has sprouted and starting to grow, which is exciting. We've got leeks in this bed, which I'm really happy with how they're doing, you guys, because when I planted these in here, they all looked like this. I don't know if you can get close on that. This one actually still has life in it. They were all about this big when I planted them. And then it got so cold and so windy, and they almost look like, all of them look like this, like they browned and kind of flopped over, and I thought, well, they're dead. And that's okay. I've got extras in the flat where I started them. But I just left them alone, kind of like with our onions last spring. Same thing happened. I planted a ton of onions out in the cut flower garden. They all looked dead and flopped over, and I went and bought new onions. And when I went to go plant them, I'm thinking like the roots are still pretty healthy here. I think they'll actually grow. So I left them alone, and they sure did grow. We got a beautiful harvest. So I'm happy with all this beautiful, strong growth here. In this bed, we have garlic. The one right over there, I think we already talked about, the lettuce and the red cabbage. In this bed here, we have parsnips and we have celery. Parsnips and we have celery right here. Is that right? That doesn't seem right. Hang on. They both have like similar leaf structure. Yeah, no, that's celery. Celery, and that one's parsnip. So I need to do some thinning here big time. But this bed was probably the slowest bed to germinate in the whole garden. So I'm glad to see some growth there. Here are our raspberry berries. So they're a strawberry raspberry cross, looking beautiful. We planted 5 of these in this container, and I just popped them right here. In fact, I haven't even tapped the drip in yet to the flower bed behind, which I could do that probably here today. But they are clearly loving their life in this spot. Okay, coming through here, we've got another Colette rose. And then by like the greenhouse and underneath the ash tree, you'll notice a ton of annuals. And those are for all the big projects we have coming up in the next few days. So anyway, that's kind of what you're seeing this direction. I think what I want to do is go back down the driveway and come back down the west side near the house, because there are some beautiful things down there. You know what, before we head down the sidewalk, I do want to show you this right here because this looks a little different. Well, this whole space looks really different, and we will head that direction in a little bit. But the white barrier that was here, I don't know what the original purpose was of that white barrier, but it was just this big concrete kind of chunk that ran on the edge of this flower bed right here. So we had that taken out, and then we are going to continue on with the winter gems right here and then the brick border. So that will continue on to wherever we start our sidewalk to the back door. So I wanted to show you that. This right here, all daffodils. It was glorious. I think White Lion and Peach Cobbler are the varieties that we had in this area. A couple random tulips in here still showing some color, but anyway, that's been a really fun spot. Really fun. Okay, and then right here, they had to, in order to get the sidewalk out, the excavator had to come the tracks were probably over this. It kind of collapsed this here, but that's okay because what we have to do is to put the new brick walkway in, we are going to have a gradual slope. So it will, start at this level here. It will gradually slope down until it gets to this point right here where they meet. We didn't really want to have a step down right there, so I think that that will work out perfectly. We are going a little bit wider with it than the sidewalk was. So it's likely I'll probably pop a few of these things out. There's a hosta and a couple lamium. We'll pop those out. And we'll probably be going, like the original sidewalk was here, we'll probably be going in about right here. So it'll be a little bit more comfortable of a walkway. I am noticing after the rain, we are gonna have to do a little bit of trimming. Every time we get a good rainstorm, it kind of weighs things down and we have to help kind of lift the canopies back up a little bit. But this whole spot is looking so pretty. This Japanese maple came from behind the gazebo last spring. So that was a transplant. All the lungwort here came from below the crabapple tree in the front garden. Look at how beautiful it is, you guys. Of course, it's surrounded by these Delnassa daffodils. They're about ready to be done, but I love how late they bloom. Even though we've had a cool spring, they were still in bloom this time last year, and it was a lot warmer last year. So they're just one of those that looks awesome late into the season. So we'll be deadheading those and then letting the leaves stay until they die back, and then those will go away, and that'll be perfect. We've got some silver gumdrop heucheras in here, seducer hostas. I think the hostas this year look better than they ever have. We've had a lot of wind, but we haven't had, knock on wood, we haven't had any hail yet, and we haven't had like the dry wind. We've had so much rain, and I think that's one of the benefits right there. The hostas look just amazing. Right here, you'll notice that Paul installed this hose link, so you can see kind of how he did it. There's a 4x4 post that's been anchored in the ground, and then he adapted, I don't know what all these parts are called. We'll probably show you in a video all the pieces, but there's this part that attaches to the 4x4, and then this little metal pipe with threads, and then the hose link. So it's very nice. We can pull the hose out. He did it high right here so that we could pull the hose out over plants and not drag the hose along plants. And then I love the fact that they're charcoal. They have them in charcoal gray now. So they do disappear a little bit more into the garden space. The tan ones, unless you have, it up against a light colored house, then the tan one is really good for that. We still have a tan one out by the barn and in the greenhouse, and I like those colors out there, but charcoal is really nice inside a flower bed. Okay, so 5 seducer hostas here. Right on this other side, we've got, this is an Empress Wu. This is its second season. Look at how big it is. Hostas are just one of my favorite plants. They're so awesome. So awesome. You'll notice that we do have a couple of units here up against the house. It is on my list to create a screen for them. So maybe we'll get to that this year because I think it would be nice to have something to kind of hide those. When we had HVAC out here looking at, they did this project, but they also were working on the Hartley. I asked them about how far away I needed to have everything, how much airflow and all of that. So I think I've got that kind of dialed in. So hopefully we can get that project underway. We've got a witch hazel right here, which looked absolutely beautiful in bloom this late winter. This right here is a Woo La La hosta. I did not expect. I know the tag says that they get enormous, but I've never had one get this big. And this is just, it's so exciting to me. Look at the water all beaded up on it. I mean, those of you who live in a rainy climate, you'll have to forgive me because just like, look at all the moisture. I just love it. I love to see the water beat it up. I think the thing about the rain, not only do the plants like it, but the rain cleans the plants off. And when you get a lot of wind and there's a lot of dust in our area, it makes everything like dirty, like dusty. And since we water everything with a drip irrigation system, that doesn't get overhead water very often. So it's nice to have that rain just give everything a cleaning shower. It's awesome. We have a Green Mountain boxwood right here. This one came, it was a transplant. Where did I transplant this one from? You remember? I think this one was right by the gazebo, on one of the ends of the gazebo underneath where the pine trees were. And it's doing well. I've got an area here to plant yet this spring, probably. And then we've got the Little Lime Punch hydrangeas, which look awesome. They are doing so well. They line this whole flower bed. So we've got Sprinter boxwoods. We've got the Little Lime Punch all the way to from the sidewalk down to this area. Sweet Romance lavender right here on either side of the kind of brick walkway area. I planted this up for you in a video earlier this spring. The stalk was tiny and not blooming, and now you can see what it looks like in bloom. Really pretty. I need to kind of come along and do a little bit of deadheading, but it's been a really fun container. Weeping White Spruce. Look at this. I think this looks better than it ever has too, don't you think, Erin? I mean, look at all this new growth. It's just doing fantastic. Now these, you guys, usually top out. Oh, there's some robins in the tree, really nearby. Look how pretty. Sorry, I got distracted because it was flapping its wings and making a bunch of noise. Probably irritated that I spent so much time right underneath where she wanted to go. Anyway, the Weeping White Spruce, they grow about 4 feet wide and they can get like 10, 12 feet tall. And so I figure that it's going to top out about where that, whatever, the overhang comes down. And we can top it if it gets a little bit too close, but I really like this as an option to put up closer to a home and not have any issues like foundation or size. Right back here, last year I just popped dahlias in this space, and I might do that again. I've got a few extra tubers that I might put back here. We've got some echinacea that I transplanted. A couple of them made it. You can see I lost one right in the middle. That happens. I'm always just thankful it happens to like a smaller plant and not one of the boxwoods or the Japanese maples. We've had pretty good luck moving some big things. Ginger Wine 9-bark adds some gorgeous color over here. And then we've got a yellow climbing rose. It's a David Austin. I cannot remember what variety it is. Is it a Graham Thomas? I'm not really sure. Is that a climber? Either way, gorgeous, full, soft yellow blooms. And then in this area, hellebores are still looking awesome. These are the Anna's Red right here. What a weird year. Like by this time, usually the hellebores are petering out, and some of mine are, but these are just looking especially good right now. This area, we have this old lilac that we've talked about removing so many times because there is a bunch of dead. Yeah, if Erin backs up there, you can kind of see where there's a bunch of dead, but I'm wondering if I spent some good time out here just really combing through this plant and cutting out some of the dead, maybe we can revive it because I love the structure of the trunk. I mean, the bark that lilacs get, it like kind of takes on this sweeping motion around the trunk, and I just think it's so beautiful, and I would hate to lose this, honestly. And you know, there's some really good options. We could put, like my in-laws, Erin's parents have beautiful, it's an Indian Magic crabapple, I think is what it's called, and it's fantastic. It's a small crabapple tree. It's got a beautiful structure. It looks pretty all year long. It would look pretty here, and that's one option I've thought about if we did remove this, but I think I'm gonna try to keep it because it's blooming, you know, it's trying to do good over here. In this corner, we have a Japanese maple that I brought home from the garden center that was sick. It was struggling, and it was like in a wood box, and we've had some struggles with it through the years. It hasn't really grown that much, but I feel like it's been here long enough to finally start looking really pretty. You can see how the structure is actually beautiful. I love to look through. If you come around this way, you can look through kind of this frame, like right here, and you can see the west side that way. I just think that that's so pretty to look at the garden through the framework of the plants. Down below it, we have Black Pearl Heuchera and some Acorus Ogon. Down there, I kind of need to do some fill-in. This was Black Pearl, and this is Black Pearl. Isn't that weird? I don't know what's going on. I've had these here for a long, long time, though, and I'm wondering if I just need to Move them? I'm not really sure. Give them extra food? We'll see. Either way, I mean, this whole flower bed's real pretty. Planted some Hudson Bay hostas in here last year with some white bleeding hearts. That's gonna look pretty when they fill in. And then I've got a Fothergilla right here, bottle brush, that's just coming out of bloom. But fantastic fall color on these. Right up here, nothing really new has gone on. You know, limelight hydrangeas here. I did want to show you this container because I showed you when I planted it with lettuce and pansies, and then there's some sweet peas starting to bloom right in the center. Isn't that awesome? So that's what your containers start to look like when you use lettuce. I'm getting water all over the back of me from these plants. But that's what your pots can look like with lettuce, and lettuce is so cheap to buy in 4 or 6 packs in the spring. Wonderful filler plant. Up here, about ready to swap these out for summer plants. As you look this direction, you'll notice we haven't done anything in this flower bed yet. However, this has been one of the nicest additions. We did not have a hose up here. So prior to this, we had to drag a hose from all the way down along the west side, which is always a bunch of plants and stuff to get your hose around, and you had to have such a long hose to reach anything up here. It was such a pain. So we had, when this was all trenched up, we brought water over here and then put this hose link in right here. So I can rotate it. This one was installed on a pipe right here. We can rotate it whatever direction we need. So oftentimes, like when we planted the Surefire begonias, I could just pull the hose right out there. Or if I need it, you know, over here for these pots, I can pull it this direction. It's so nice. So of course, you know, eventually I'm hoping to have, you know, plants and stuff around it so it's not the only thing in this flower bed. But things like this used to bug me, seeing hoses or things like that in the garden, even though we need to have hoses and all those practical things. But now I look at these and it makes me happy to see them, no matter where they're at in the garden. I'm like, oh, the convenience that has brought to my life has been so awesome. I don't know if we're gonna actually get it to planting this bed this year. We do have plans for it. I am thinking a water feature right in here, possibly. But we'll just have to see what happens because we've got a lot of other things on our plate. This direction, we are still going to reshape this flower bed. After we got the initial one done, I just realized how it's way too skinny. For the length of this sidewalk and the width of it, this needs to be much, much wider. So like at least this much wider. And we'll probably reshape it to where it's not just a long, just straight line. It'll be more, you know, we'll create some bigger islands and then it'll go out way further on this side. Which direction should we head, Aaron? Should we go through there and then come back to the Hartley? Let's go that way? Okay. I'll explain that more when we get that way. But I wanted to go this direction so we can take a look at this tree. Again, this big flower bed, other than this huge, massive tree, we haven't done anything in terms of plants. I think the tree is quite enough though. For now, I'm just loving seeing that blue spruce back in there. We have an ash tree right here, which is looking pretty good. Ash trees in our area are super prone to borers. And the other one we had, well, we have another one in the driveway too, but we had one in front of our gazebo, and every year it would just lose huge, like we'd have to remove huge chunks of the tree until eventually it was just like kind of small, and we had it removed in the end because it was so sick. But this one, which is glorious in the fall, is looking pretty good. I'm thankful for that. There's a few little dead branches we need to remove, but that would be a sad day if this tree ever had to come out. But this, you guys, this is just like, I hated to even admit how much I missed the last one because like we couldn't put it back, you know, the one that fell over. And it just was such a cornerstone. It was the cornerstone plant in this garden. And while we were, you know, tearing out other areas, I could always rest in the fact that we had this big glorious evergreen and how it just brought so much structure to the garden. And I would look at that and it would kind of make me remember that, you know, the rest of the garden will get here. We'll get to this spot at some point in time. But then when it fell down, it's like, oh, and we have this huge hole again to fill. So when I learned that this was an option, and of course, like Aaron was all over it. Aaron was the one who organized the whole thing, and it was just so fun to go and see the possibilities. And I can't even believe that I'm standing next to this right now. Like, it's just wild to me. And it really is gonna change the trajectory and the plan of this flower bed. because I was kind of struggling without having that blue spruce here, because I, thought that would always be here. I thought I'm gonna have to retool this whole space, and I was kind of like a little bit not uninspired, but I just had a little bit of a block because I just thought that we would have this evergreen here, but now we do, and it'll be fun to just design this space. Again, I don't know when we're gonna get to this space exactly. I'm sure we'll pop some things in here this year, but I'm gonna be focusing on the Hartley area mostly for a while. Over here, I have not spent very much time. In fact, I need to come in here and do some big time pruning. I mean, we've got an oak leaf hydrangea with a bunch of dead. So I need to go in there and cut that out. There is, living, it's coming back, but maybe a little bit more toward the bottom. Same with this Japanese maple. I've got a little pruning to do in here, but there's a lot of good things up here too. You can see the alliums are about ready to open up and start blooming. And we've got poppies in here. We've got Kodiak orange Dervellas, which I hadn't had very much experience with, but they really have filled in wonderfully in here. But I'm thinking of maybe doing some pruning on these this year to create a little bit more of a tidy habit. Look at this. The buds for the poppies, so exciting. I love the texture that poppies bring. Also, an update on the poppy seeds that we planted out in the south garden and at my parents'. We haven't seen any sprout from that experiment. I don't know that we have the climate to pull that off. Had we had the moisture we're getting now earlier, it probably would have worked. But what happened is, like, early on, it was like late winter, it started warming up like it was spring, and it was very dry and windy. And I just think that was not favorable to the poppy seeds. And then we started getting moisture really late on. I don't know if it was just the rhythm of how things happened, but it didn't work this time. I don't know if it's one that I will actually try again or not, because we can't predict what the weather is going to do. In more wet climates, more like consistently moist climates, I think it just maybe works out a little bit better. We've got the phlox that we planted in here last year coming back. We've got some Queen of Sweden David Austin roses, which I need to get some iron on. You can see the chlorosis already kind of shining through. See that? Some of the newer growth tends to be a little bit more yellow, but this is more yellow than typical. And it's got the darker green veins. And then we have a spruce here that I think is staying way too wet. I'm going to do some trimming on it, but you can see a bunch of new growth on it. So I'm going to root around in there and pull the drip away from it, trim it up, and I think we'll be okay. And then we've got some Amsonia looking really pretty. This is Storm Cloud right here. Oh, and a piece of garbage. Excellent. Let that break down right here. That's right. Good weed suppressant. All right. Moving this way, we've got the locust trees that flank this area with Persephone. We planted some beautiful pink impatiens here. When I went around the night that it got really cold and I covered everything, I forgot about this space. And I was driving around on the Gator, racking my brain, thinking, okay, what have we planted? Did I get everything covered? Didn't even think about this spot. So you'll notice that some of them look okay. Some of them have some damage on the tops, but I think they're going to be okay, because as you look closer at these and get down into the plant, still a bunch of green growth in there. I think it's just the tops that got nailed. So like this one looks pretty good though. See that? And then this one right next to it, I think we'll just need a minute to pop out of that poor, the poor state that it's in. I couldn't believe it when I walked out here the next day and I thought, oh, I could have covered those, and I just didn't remember. That happens. Boxwoods right here, you can see all the fluffy growth. These will be, hopefully we'll have a chance to shear these up along with the others this next week when it cools down again. We've got just a handful of the Cafe Noir tulips coming up in here. I think this next year is going to be a year where we recharge this area and put some new tulips in. We planted these, I don't even know how many years ago, 5 maybe. They came up strong for a good 2-3 years, and then they started to peter out. And it could be the water that we had to this area. I'm not sure if it was consistent enough, but they are pretty. The color is beautiful. And then we do have denim and lace Russian sage in here. And you'll notice some discoloration on the sprinters. They got spider mites last year, like pretty bad. So they are coming out of it though. I mean, you can see new growth all over the place in here. These, I might shear the sides up just a little bit so that we don't have any floppy branches. I'm going to leave the tops alone, and I'm not going to shear them very hard because I don't I don't want them to shock further, but I don't want to like leave this kind of stuff going on. So this will be a really quick prune job. Right behind us, we have some gorgeous pansies. Do you remember when we planted these up? Like, they're pretty simple, but I've just really enjoyed them. We had tulips going on in here. So the Purissima blondes, they were beautiful white tulips. The foliage though looks like an autumn frost hosta. And then I ringed around that just with like 6-pack blue pansies. And they are just like, I can't even bear to pull these out. I don't even have plans on what I'm gonna be planting in these because I can't move past how pretty the pansies still look. Right here we had, what was the variety? The Akebono, which is like a really soft yellow, and then blue pansies and lettuce. So this is a green romaine right here. And then we have this fern spray cypress with pansies around it. And I did the exact same thing over here on the other side, looking so pretty, especially with the beads of water on them. Just gorgeous. The planters up here are doing fairly well. I think that I'm gonna lose one of these boxwoods. They were looking poor last year. Yeah, I think that this one's done. It had both of these had spider mites. All of our boxwoods had spider mites last year, and so I want to be very diligent about preventative care on those. We've done videos about spider mites before, so that's what we're hoping to do this year as it starts to warm up. They like heat, and we haven't had a lot of that yet, so I haven't noticed any action yet. But look at the lettuce. Thankfully, the lettuce has kind of grown and become the star in these containers. So pretty. In these window boxes, we have a mixture of different purple pansies. There are some ferns, which we'll either leave in here or put out in the landscape. Some of them have really taken off. There were little yellow daffodils, and that's what these leaves are. And they were just the sweetest things. I just loved it. This whole bed here is full of a soft yellow columbine. You can see that they're just now oh, this one's a little bit further along, just starting to open up. Look at this right in here. And these bloom for a good part of the season. Typically, I thought that columbine just normally do spring, but it seems like these go through the better part of the summer, and it could be because they're in quite a lot of shade right here, just dappled sun, a little bit of sun in the morning, and then dappled through the later part of the morning, and then shade. And I just love how they've naturalized in this space. They look really pretty beneath this birch tree. And then we've got a viburnum right here, which is in full bloom. And this is a type of viburnum that doesn't smell very good when it's in bloom. I'll show you from the front. But the euonymus that we trimmed up earlier on, looking good. And then this view is always really pretty. I always love looking through this space and seeing all the different layers. You can see that the hostas are just starting to pop through. And this whole space right here will be completely full of hosta, and you won't be able to see any soil. This spot right here, I typically plant some kind of an annual in here. It's kind of an interesting spot because we have a sprinkler somewhere right here, I thought. Right, Aaron?
Yeah.
Where? Like, how come I can never find sprinklers when I need to? Where is it? Do we have a sprinkler right here? Pretty sure we do. Anyway. The sprinkler pops up somewhere over here, and it keeps this area pretty wet. I did double up begonias last year though. They did fantastic along with potato vine. White lilac. This is one of the ones that was here when we moved in. It's starting to weigh down in the center quite a lot. When we moved in, it actually was so full of sucker growth in the center. I went in and cleaned all that out. But now, I don't know if that was creating a framework to help keep the branches up. But I feel like we need to get in there and kind of do some tying and cabling to kind of keep it upright, because as we get more rain, especially when it's in bloom, I mean, these branches can really weigh down, and I do not want them to break off at the base. So that's probably a project for this next week. Leucogem, though, underneath here, they're like giant snowdrops with daffodil-looking foliage. So absolutely beautiful and magical looking, like fairy garden-esque. And I planted these a couple of years ago and have really enjoyed them. I planted a whole bunch more out in the south garden. There's cheddar. They're not quite as tall as these though. So I don't know if maybe the soil out there, they need a little bit more time, but I just really love them. Hellebores in this space. So these are a little bit further along than the ones we looked at on the west side, but some of them still have some good color. You know, you can see what was going on in here. There's a whole bunch of different varieties in this bed, and they've started to naturalize. And I'm gonna just let them. They can just be thick hellebores in here. I don't care what color they bloom, because you know, when they come up as seedlings, you never know what you're gonna get from them, and that's totally fine. Before we move too far, I did tell you I would show you the viburnum from the front side. So check this out. Isn't that beautiful? Kind of like, I'm not gonna lie, it has kind of a dog poop smell to it. In fact, the other day I was walking in the kitchen door and I was like, what is that smell? Where is that coming from? And then I walked by this later. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. When this one's in bloom, it doesn't smell the best. But the leaves are gorgeous. It's worth having. My parents have one of these in their garden too. Look at the leaves. And then after they're done blooming, they're followed by pink and blue berries. So they have clusters of both color berries, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And then the front side of this bed, again, the columbine, you can see the lamium. Right here, this whole area, this hosta gets enormous. So it'll actually come out over the top of all these plants right here. It'll probably push this one over. And there are more hostas in this area too. So there's hostas up in there. They're coming up in this space too. There's even some here that I transplanted last year. Little guys, they're coming. And then I guess we could just go down this way. Right here, we've got a royalty crabapple that's looking really good. Just about ready to be done blooming here. It's put on quite a bit of growth. I feel like eventually we're gonna have to limit up a little bit. You're probably itching to get those loppers out, aren't you? But I want it to get just a little bit more size. I don't know. This area right here, we've got a bright pink, kind of an old-timey, I think it might be a rugosa type of rose right here. And it's kind of, when you see the structure, it's coming out of the soil in several different spots. It's not coming out like from one central trunk. So it's kind of like naturalized in this area. We've just let it go. It's super full of thorns. That's one of the reasons I don't want to tackle it. It's such a beast of a rose plant. We've got Rudbeckia coming up in this area. In the back here is the butterfly bush that we recently cut back. And there's a peony kind of pushing its way out of the juniper there. A variegated iris I planted maybe in here a couple of years ago. It blooms purple and smells like grapes. It's fantastic. I love it. I don't know the variety name of it. And then we've got a hawthorn in bloom, and that's blooming better than it has ever. When I brought this one home, it was another one that was a little bit not doing very well in its container down at the garden center. So I thought, well, I'll give it a chance. We had, when we moved in, there was like three upright junipers that were just like half dead. They looked horrible. They needed to come out, and I think the reason why they were not doing as well as willow was just kind of growing over the top of them. They didn't have enough room to really breathe, so we had those removed. And then, yeah, I think that was a really pretty one to put in here. I have a tiny wine 9-bark. I'm gonna take this out. I was gonna give it another chance. It's got a little bit of growth at the base, but it's just kind of not looking great. I want to put something different in here. I think something with a little bit more of a bright red color, like a ginger wine 9-bark would, I think, be beautiful tucked in right here. I think that would be really nice. We've got pink profusion salvia in here and a purple that's worked its way. I don't know how that one ended up in here. This is the one I planted. This is, I don't know how it got there. It wasn't there last year. That's weird. Lemon jade sedum. I had a blue spruce right here that did not make it. I don't know what happened to it. It just died. Sometimes there's no explanation. Winecraft black smoke bush. There's a, what's the name? Oh, I know. Royal Jubilee David Austin Rose, right? No, Jubilee Celebration. What? Let me do that again. Okay. Jubilee Celebration David Austin Rose. Jubilee Celebration David Austin Rose. It blooms beautifully right here, even with the amount of shade that it gets from the willow. We try to keep up on the trimming of this willow, but if you've ever grown a willow, you know how fast they grow. It's crazy. There are some limelight hydrangeas in here, but we are thinking a major redo for this area. It may include water. It may include a little bit of a waterfall. I'm not sure. I think this would be an ideal location for some kind of water. We've talked about it in the past. And now that we're really retooling this area, I mean, to the right here, you can kind of see what's going on. We're trying to marry the idea of having really straight, very formal kind of lines around the Hartley. We're trying to marry that with the kind of more easy nature of the flower bed lines out here. They're more rounded and a little less formal. So it may work, I'm not sure. Right here, there's a chunk of iris So I asked Chad when he was out here, you know, he's still working on getting this area graded. It's almost done. I asked him if he could save me a chunk of iris because I have some more areas on the west side I want to plant, and they're so shallow rooted. I asked him if he could just like scrape up a chunk and then move them somewhere for me. And so this is it. I need to work on transplanting these. They're about ready to bloom. Poor things. So we may sacrifice a few blooms, but I'm glad we were able to save it. It was the last thing in this area that we really wanted to hold on to. So anyway, that brings us to the area around the Hartley. It's changed quite a lot. The kohlrabi is about ready to need to be harvested. It looks like it's gonna sprout legs and take off out of these cold frames. I didn't really remember or realize how big this kohlrabi gets. It's huge. Like you can show down in here. I think you might be able to see like the bulb. About ready to harvest down in here. Look at that. So kohlrabi likes this spot. We know this now, but you know what? The lettuce does too. Like, okay, I planted romaine in here. Even though it's not getting very much light, it's still looking really good. The chickens will love this treat. I'll give that to them when we get over there. But looking really, really good just having this area clear. Now you'll notice this pile of stones. This actually will go to the back side because the floor in here, we're going to have the same thing brought out of the back, but there was, when they were just finishing up the floor, there was still a trench back right directly behind the back door. So they were unable to finish. So they just left a stack of stones that we'll use back there. And then we do plan on bringing gravel. What's the matter? You see him, he's like, I don't see cheddar anywhere. Did I move too suddenly? How funny. We're gonna bring gravel in. So we had talked about maybe continuing on this stone floor, but then we kind of started adding up square footage and thinking, I don't think so. Not right now anyway. Gravel is also very easy to manipulate. So if we get flower beds in here and it doesn't quite work with the traffic flow, sometimes you don't know until you do it. In fact, Benjamin and I came out here on Mother's Day and I had strings and stakes and a tape measure, and we ran strings along the sides of the Hartley and measured out because I do want to put a couple of beds right out in front of the structure. And I realized that I needed more feet between the structure and the start of the beds. I needed, it just like, it opens your eyes. Like things look different on paper than they do in real life. And that's one of the reasons why landscape planning, for me, I don't really like to do it because it changes so significantly when you start in on the project, for me anyway. So I'm so visual. I need to come out here and like step things off and put paint on the ground and all that sort of thing. But I can tell you we do have a huge pile of boxwoods out on the new property that are waiting for this project right here. So I'm very excited to get started. And I think we've got, between my initial plans, Aaron came in and he spent some time like looking at the plans and kind of fussed with the lines. I think we came up collectively with a really good plan for this whole area, and it's making me very excited to get started. So of course, right here, I should have mentioned that like from the very beginning, our huge new maple tree in this area. I'm so happy with it. It's just, I can't even believe it's there. It just, without those pine trees since the last winter when we had them removed, it just has been this huge hole. And I knew we removed them because they were full of blight. We didn't really want to have a sick, diseased tree right next to this Hartley structure. We wanted to start over with some things that are a little bit better, that would last a little bit longer. And I had at that time, no idea that we would be able to like do something like this. I didn't even know that anybody in our area did this sort of thing. So this has been a really fun process. This is a red maple right here, about, what do we decide, 35 feet tall, 15-inch caliper. This whole area is going to be so fun though, you guys. So right here where the brick patio was, we are going to have some sort of a patio area because we actually used this area the most of any area on our property. So there will be seating again on that side. We will probably do, I'm guessing, right in here. I don't know if it will be square or round, kind of like the round brick raised bed thing that was here, but something that's a little bit nicer, maybe some kind of a water feature in the like dead center straight with the Hartley. And then you'll be able to walk this way. We're gonna bring out the boxwoods from right here. So we'll plant more boxwoods here. There'll be maybe a brick pillar with an urn or a light. And then right here, there will be another brick pillar, and then there will be a step down right here. So this will feel like a new room. And then we're going to do some configuration of boxwood around here to room in this area as well. So there will be some sort of hedging around it to create a room feel. Same with this area here, but like this was my one opportunity to create contour in our property. Everything's so flat that when we were looking at the Hartley, it's crazy how much more low the ground was on the far side of the Hartley than it was up here. And then again, so from this point of the Hartley up into this area. So we'll probably cut out just a little bit more, form this up, and we'll have a step in our garden. I'm so excited about it. And then after you step down in here, you know, the pathway will take off in both directions. Right here, we're going to have a boxwood hedge right here that comes out and that creates kind of a rectangle from, you know, both edges. Does that make sense? It comes out on both ends, but not the cold frame end. I don't want it to come out there. It'll come out here. And then it'll be about right in here-ish. So you won't see, this is the panel, the electricity, and all of the stuff that goes inside the Hartley, and it had to be there. So with the boxwood hedging, and then we'll, you know, back plant the boxwoods with something really fun. Like, I don't know exactly what, but something really fun, but it'll be something that kind of shrouds this. You won't be able to see it, which will be nice. But I don't want to do anything too tall right up next to the structure to block the view or block the light, that sort of thing. So anyway, there's just so many exciting things back here. There's pretty much nothing left except for the Avatar Blue Spruce, which is sitting right there by the skid steer. Again, this is where they will bring out the stone. So it will come out to about here, just like a little landing pad. I'm hoping that that helps with like gravel being kicked in and in the way of the door, and that sort of thing. Oh, there's a piece of cotton on the ground. Exciting stuff. I am planning on, and if you guys have a good source for benches, like wood benches that are really nice, I want to put one on either side right here, and then I'll need 2 more for the garden that we're creating back here. And this is going to be like the most formal part of it right back here. This is where most of the boxwoods will go. It's going to be fun. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's going to be fun, and it's going to be formal, and it will look, I think, really good with the Hartley. The redbud, I did want to talk about that because it's still looking really good, about ready to be done blooming. I'm glad we were able to catch the last part of it for this tour. But isn't that the prettiest thing? Especially when the lilac is blooming and you can see the red point, which that one was the worst with chlorosis. That red point back there, it was yellow last year, like yellow. And now it's green and beautiful. But you can see that we did scrape up all the grass here because we have to redo sprinklers in this area based on how we work the patio and how we work the walkway going up to the back shade porch there. It's going to be similar but different than it was before. You know, I think the pathway will still kind of lead out the same way in front of the coop. This is going to be, we moved the trucks this morning just so that the view was a little bit more open, but this is where we park, like real life. You know, this is where we park our trucks and we get out and, you know, go through the back kitchen doors. So there'll still be an entrance here. We're just not sure exactly how all of it will come together in the end. But I don't know. Seeing it blank slate for me, I think it was necessary. Like, I really kind of pushed back on wanting to remove stuff like the white arbor, the randomness that was right here. I knew it was going to come out, but when it came right down to it, I didn't really want to get rid of it because of, you know, everything else being pulled out. But once those things are gone and removed, it just kind of, my natural instinct is to work around what's already there. And that is not always necessary. Aaron's laughing at me. Like, why are you laughing at me?
Because my instinct is the opposite.
Yeah, Aaron's instinct is to just like lay waste and then rebuild. That's how he cleans too. Like if you clean out your closet, everything comes out and then everything goes back in one at a time. I don't do it that way. My process is much slower though, so it is a good thing. And it really helped me be able to see this area in a different way. Okay, Hosta Garden is looking awesome under the golden rain tree. Look at this. Like, have we ever had the hostas look so good? I don't think so. Yeah, Aaron just reminded me that we've had the water has been cut to this area for over a month. I think we've hand watered it one time, maybe, but all the rain we've been getting, like we haven't had to water things. It's just crazy. I wish we lived in a land where it was like that all the time because everything just flourishes. We had little groupings of daffodils come up and bloom. We've got autumn frost hostas. These are wee hostas right here. We've got woolalas, which are gonna get big, especially if they keep getting the moisture that they're getting now. There's a whole bunch of other ones in here. Yeah, there's Diamond Lake in here. There's Hudson Bay. There's a Gold Coast right here.
Coast to coast?
Coast to coast. Whatever is close enough. Anyway, there's a whole bunch. There's some that I don't even know as well. It's like some unnamed varieties that I had in containers in the greenhouse. I lost the tags and I don't know what they are, but I love this garden right here. Again, this is our stockpile of plants that we're using down at the community college. So anyway, that's what they're doing. They just arrived here yesterday. We needed a spot to just set them for a little while. You can see I'm going to be using a lot of cannas down there this year. Those are the toucan coral and toucan yellow cannas. It's going to be really, really pretty. I can't wait. But I also can't wait to have these just out of the driveway and planted in the ground so they can start growing and doing their thing. But that's what all of these are doing, sitting right here. So there was a wood fence right here. This is the opening because this is where the pots were. You can see where the beam, like the vertical post was there and right in here. So we'll probably widen this opening now that we have the opportunity to do that, but we will, hedge it back in so that this flower bed along the chicken coop will still be the flower bed along the chicken coop. I don't plan on changing the pallet walkway except for the trajectory at the very end. I will change that, but as far as this stuff goes and this stuff goes, that'll all remain the same. I think we should go around maybe this way. Also, real quick, the avalanche birch, look at the top. I don't know what the heck happened. Like just the whole top, all the tips are dead up there. I think they're dead because the rest of the tree looks pretty darn alive. This tree has never struggled. It's never had any issues of any kind. There's no issues like disease issues on the leaves that I can see. So I don't know what the meaning of that is up there. I do plan on cutting it out. I'm gonna get a ladder out. I'll probably do it in a video for you guys. Or maybe we can get that safety bucket for the tractor and you could raise me up.
Yeah.
That would be handy. But maybe we just need to give it more time, like the shrub that I tried to yank out of the flower bed. I don't know what's going on. So if any of you have had this happen and you know what's going on, please let me know because it's a mystery. Okay, we're gonna head underneath the cables here. And you can see this area is kind of a mess, honestly. I mean, the pallet walkway is full of mud. Everybody was actually, like, shout out to everybody that helped us at this house. Like all of the people who did electrical and HVAC and water, everybody was so respectful of all of our things and so nice. Like the electricians came and found me one day out in the garden. They said, we need to dig right where there's a couple of really nice looking flowers. Do you want us to dig those out to where like you maybe could save them? Like they actually thought to do that. So they dug them out with a nice big root ball and I'm able to, they were 2 Brunnera plants. So I'm able to replant those. You want those kind of people around here that have the mentality that things have value, and that they try to respect your things. And I just so appreciate that, including the pallet walkway, which is this, super easy to get a hold of the pallets. And I could rebuild this pallet walkway, which honestly, it's like how old, 5 years old now. It could probably use a refresh at this point, but everybody was real careful to stay away from it. But it's very muddy because we had a water blowout, and it was spraying water. On a Sunday, I came out here to open up the greenhouse and I just took a video of it and sent it to Aaron. Like, well, there's that. So anyway, it just made a big mud puddle back here. So those all need to be cleaned off. What the plan is about right here. Instead of the pallet walkway turning this way, I'm going to dig these up and move them, and the pallet walkway will go out more straight rather than curve in because the new garden behind the Hartley will be here. But there are some really nice perennials and things. Baptisias are starting to grow and fill in, even starting to open up a little bit. These are the pink lemonade, I think that's what they're called, variety. Look at this. And these get big, you guys. It's kind of deceiving. Right now they seem small, but they get like, last year they were in the end like this tall, really filled in this space. The hibiscus, these are further along than any of our hibiscus. These are the big dinner plate ones. Look at, there's new growth. I think it's because they're so protected back here. Back behind the chicken coop, they're protected from wind. I think they stay warmer, and they're just a lot further along. This is an October Glory maple right here. Super happy we planted this. It's put on a lot of good growth. I think it'll look really pretty with the other ones. But yeah, I haven't paid a lot of attention clearly to this bed because of the fact that things are going to need to change. The weird thing is though, was the water cut to this bed too? Yeah. So the water was cut to this bed. Everything really pulled through, but like the white ones, Veronica, that I've had in here for years, One patch is coming back there, and there's a tiny little patch right there. That seems weird to me. I don't know why they didn't come back very well, especially because even without a ton of water, the rest of the perennials really came out of it. That's okay. We got to change it anyway. And then the last area back here has changed quite a bit as well. The fence is gone. Also, I think this is the last area we'll look at today because I'm sure this video is already like an hour long. We will do garden tour part 2 where we will show you through the south garden. That way, yeah, it's not going to be a 2-hour video. Anyway, fence is gone. Again, that was one of the things that I kind of just needed to have removed in order to start visualizing the space, because the main reason we want the views to look good, well, from every direction of the garden, and we wanted this to either feel like we wanted to make it feel like it has more of a purpose, because before we just never came back here. There was no reason to come back here. It was sequestered off from the rest of the space with this fence. It just made it feel separate. So we haven't quite decided if we're going to keep it a little bit more of an open view or if we're going to really like make it a secret garden space, but like create something where it draws you back. Right now, the view through the Hartley, we are going to have a centerpiece in that garden, but right now this is what it looks at. Well, before it was the white fence, and then this kind of like growing through the white fence. And we want to create a really pretty vistas from every area of the garden. So we might change this up a bit to where it's either opened up looking back at something like in the distance, a little bit more formal. I don't know. I'm not really sure how this whole area is going to form up or at what point it's going to start doing that. But we did have the gravel removed here, because, you know, there was gravel all the way around this triangular shaped garden, and it was very confusing to people who came who had never been here. They weren't sure if they should keep going straight or if they should go with the curve. And usually I think most people tend to want to keep going straight, and so it got people into a jam over here. So we wanted to kind of eliminate that confusion. So by doing the gravel removal, I think it's actually going to take on more of a curve. So from the edge of that boxwood, it'll kind of curve over right here. This is all going to be garden space. So we wanted to get the fence out so that we could incorporate this space in and make it feel more cohesive. But there's still there's so many beautiful things back here. Sorry, Aaron, can you, don't trip. Or do you want to go through this opening over here? Okay, there's a hole. You got it. Back here is where we've started to plant the thick border. We are considering maybe a big evergreen in that corner instead of the birch tree. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Everything, for the most part, is starting to leaf out. We have one birch that's kind of weak. I'll show you when we get closer. But everything's really starting to look good back here. So we are trying out the no-dig method back here, which is something brand new to me, and we will show you more of that in a future video. We did a little bit more explaining. Anyway, it's really forming up nicely back here. Before the mulch was in, it looked pretty rough. This is actually not mulch, it's compost, which is nice. Well, I think we're going to just do compost in so many areas. Back behind the Hartley, of course, we're going to need to work that soil, and it looks really good, I think, especially with the rain. It makes everything look nice and kind of dark colored. But I'm really loving this mix of evergreens and deciduous trees back here. The area next to the barn, the hydrangeas that were in this same hedge right here, they are firelights, I believe. They went to a friend's house, so they're living in another garden now. We were able to save 3, but they had to trench right through here. So we had to pop those hydrangeas up, and so they went. But these are gonna go. Yeah, at some point. These were lining the back of the flower bed here. So I'm not really sure if we're gonna keep this gravel area here or if we're gonna remove that and then maybe do like a shallow flower bed right here, which I think would look really pretty up against the barn. Anyway, we are considering, did I already say we're considering doing another evergreen instead of the birch? Right here at that Malad Tree Farm, they've got some Norway spruces that are they're tall and they're fairly thin. And I think if we popped the trunk about right, I don't know, right here, do you think? It won't go out too far into the walkway, and it will provide a block for all of our stuff, our neighbors and ours, you know, because this is like where both of us store everything. We haven't cleaned ours up yet for this season. We kind of get a pile going and then have to go through mid-season and kind of clear it up. But I think we might move the birch over and do something evergreen right there. I don't know why we didn't do that in the beginning, but you know, hindsight. Moving down this flower bed, you'll notice the boxwoods are still here. I wanted to leave these until we had the garden opened up because I thought that once the garden was opened up with the fence removed and maybe some of these plants moved, that maybe Aaron might feel differently about them. They're so pretty, you guys. I just can't, I don't want to get rid of them. Aaron wants to get rid of them. So they're still here for a little while. But the flower bed's looking pretty. We're just leaving everything that was here. Like last year I planted the hostas and heuchera back here. There's iris and virginia. And some other things going on, and we're just going to let everything kind of just be. But you can see the compost here goes all the way. I think Paul said he had like 10 more feet to do and he ran out of cardboard. So we've been raiding all of the stores in town, just calling around to the box stores, my parents' garden center, going to the appliance store and begging for cardboard boxes. So this is where he ended. So this is basically what's underneath all of that right there. Isn't that amazing? I think it's going to be awesome if it works. We've got an old hedge of lilacs right here, and then a triple trunk birch Royal Frost that looks really pretty. There was white fence right here as well. So there's At Last roses. This is a blue spruce that will get pretty good size, a lot smaller than the others for now, but we'll just let that grow and fill in. And of course, like this area was all gravel as well. So there's a lot to do in this space. The gorgeous Norway spruce, this is one of the 3 from Alad Tree Farm. The Norway that we're considering maybe for that back corner is much thinner than this one, like thinner and taller. But this is just like a magical, beautiful, I can't believe it's in our garden tree. I just love it. So pretty. This run of boxwoods, I think this run needs to come out probably and we'll start fresh. But we may retool this whole area. This area hasn't actually had water for a while because this one got cut too in the whole kind of movement of everything. But we've struggled with this in particular right here. Like this, I think this whole boxwood right here is dead. This one would need to come out completely. I don't know. I feel like we've struggled with this one so much through the years that we could just get rid of from the fence down that way and just plant new ones. I do like the structure here, but the gravel will stay here and kind of, well, you can see it'll curve to, they got as far as they could with their machines, but it'll curve to about here. And then that will all be flower bed. That's why we removed the 4 pots right there. And the containers are doing pretty good. Not a lot of color yet. I had to tent these for 2 nights though. And then we've got the beautiful view this way. There's the back side of the hawthorn, iris, purple iris about ready to bloom. Usually they overlap this lilac a little bit. So sometimes we get them blooming at the same time and it's just so spectacular. I love this whole space right here. And then I kind of wanted to end this tour right here with a view of that beautiful blue spruce. I missed that so much. It looks so pretty. Look at that. Oh, and then these pots. We should look at these. This is the Vereshik tulips right here. They're interesting. Look at those, green and pink. So these tulips were the ones that we put in containers. I had them back behind the greenhouse. They sat back there with snow piled on them for most of the winter. Then we moved them into the heated greenhouse fairly early to grow them on a little early. It was so nice to have those to kind of move into those containers up there and then use them as centerpiece here. But we've got some blue pansies, some yellow violas, just really sweet and simple. I really like it. And that is it, you guys, for May garden tour of the gardens surrounding our house. A lot going on, a lot of fun things, loving the rain. Everything is just looking very fresh right now, and I'm so thankful for that. We will do part 2 where we show you the south garden, the new area out there, the cut flower gardens kind of coming along slowly this year, but surely we're gonna get there. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. We really appreciate that, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.